welcome to my channel if you're new here. Today is Krampus video 2. I'm going to show you how to make an oven mitt. So get ready, be prepared, go make yourself an oven mitt or give it to somebody else. Let's jump right in. Now, I tried to film this video yesterday, but it was just not working out very well. For whatever reason, I got the steps all kinds of mixed up. I've only made oven mitts once, so maybe that's why I couldn't remember what to do. But anyways, now I'm going to redo the video and we're going to try to make it better this time. Not that you would know that unless, you know, I just told you. But anyways, so what the first thing that you're going to do is, I do not have any sizes for you guys. I'm sorry. Because what I did was I took an oven mitt that I already had and I traced it. So that's what you're going to need to do, is go get an oven mitt if you have one and trace it. Or you can just take some paper to the store and trace an oven mitt at the store if you want. So once you trace your oven mitt on some paper, I traced mine on cardstock paper that I got from Hobby Lobby. And the paper was still not long enough. So I taped some paper together to make it long enough. You can use whatever paper that you have. And if it's not long enough, like mine wasn't long enough, just tape some papers together so you can actually make a template out of it. So the first thing that I did was I taped some paper together and then I traced my oven mitt. After I traced my oven mitt, I added a 1/2 inch of seam allowance. So that's what this is right there. This little gap is a 1/2 inch of seam allowance. I would suggest adding a 1/2 inch to 1 inch of seam allowance, but no more than that or it will get all bulky on the sides. So trace your oven mitt, take some paper, lay your oven mitt down, literally trace it around your oven mitt, and then once you have that line, you're going to draw another line that is 1/2 inch or 1 inch away from that line, all the way around, and then cut it out. And this is going to be your template. So after you have your template, the other materials that you will need for this project are 100% cotton batting, fabric, and thread. The reason for this is because you don't want to worry about it burning. So make sure you have 100% cotton for everything. So once again, 100% cotton batting, thread, and fabric. And then you will also need some Insulbright. You can find this at Hobby Lobby or any other craft store, I'm sure, but the Insulbright is what helps reflect the heat so you don't burn yourself. So the sizing of these that you'll need is actually based off of the size of your oven mitt, but mine are 9 by 14. The reason that I say it's based on the size of your oven mitt is because when you lay your template on top of your fabric, you just want to have enough extra fabric where you have enough room to work. So it really just depends on the size of your oven mitt. But if your oven mitt is similar to this size, then a 9 by 14 should work. No matter what size you cut out, all the steps are the same, okay guys? But mine is 9 by 14. You will need 2 pieces of your main fabric for your oven mitt. This can be the same fabric or they can be different like mine are. But these are measuring 9 by 14 like I said. And you will need 2 pieces of those for the outside of your fabric. Then you will also need 2 pieces for your lining fabric. I already have mine cut out. But you can also do this by like a 9 by 14 and then cut around, or you can just go ahead and lay your template on your fabric and cut around it. But you will need 2 pieces for your lining fabric as well. So you have 2 main pieces of fabric for your outside of your oven mitt, and then you have 2 pieces of fabric for your lining. You will also need 2 pieces of Insulbright that are measuring 9 by 14. And then you will need 2 pieces of 100% cotton batting that are also measuring 9 by 14. This cotton batting is specifically Wrap and Zap, and you can get this from Hobby Lobby or any other craft store or Walmart. After you have your main fabric cut out and it's measuring 9 by 14 or whatever size you can fit your template on, you see how I'm saying that there's extra room with this template? You just want to make sure there's extra room, so whatever that size is for you. But once again, mine is a 9 by 14. Once you have those pieces cut out, if you want to quilt your fabric, the next thing to do is to make the quilt lines. I personally make my quilt lines 3 inches apart, and I want to do a crosshatch. That means I'm going to make 3 inches apart of lines going this way, and then I'm going to turn my fabric and do 3 inches apart again going this way, and that's what's going to give it the crosshatch look. But you can do whatever quilting you like. You can do straight lines going vertical or horizontal, or you can make boxes, you can do a design on it, or you can do crosshatch like I'm doing. But like I said, mine are 3 inches apart. And how you can do this is you can either take a fabric marker and mark the lines, so do like this 3 to this 3 and then draw a line. But I personally like to use this tool. This is on my Amazon storefront, but I did get this from Hobby Lobby. I'm not really sure what it's called, but it's the Clover brand. And what you do is you just line up wherever you want to make your mark and just go like that, and then it makes a crease in your fabric. After I go from the 3 to the 3, then I'm going to go from the 6 to the 6 because that is 3 inches apart. And then I'm going to do that again. And then I'm good to go. I only need 2 lines because I need one for the reference and one to set my quilting guide bar. But you can go all the way if you want with a marker or with this tool, whichever will make it easiest for you while you're quilting. You want to make sure that you draw the lines for your quilting on both pieces of your main fabric, because we're going to quilt both fabrics. After you have both of your main pieces of fabric ready to go for quilting, you already have your lines on there. What you want to do next is take your Insulbright and lay it down, and then take your 100% cotton batting and put that right on top of your Insulbright. Make sure that it's nice and lined up. And then you're going to take one of your main pieces of fabric and put that on top of both of those. Make sure that it's nice and lined up because we're going to go quilt all of this together. Once you have it all stacked together, you're going to want to take some clips or some pins and just pin around the entire thing to make sure that it doesn't move while we're quilting. You're going to want to do this to both of the main pieces of fabric. So once again, you're going to take your Insulbright first, and then your cotton batting, and then your main piece of fabric, and then clip those together. So now we have both of the main pieces of fabrics clipped together. Once again, it's the Insulbright, then the 100% cotton batting, and then your fabric, and then you clip it all together because we're going to go quilt it. So let's just go ahead and jump to the sewing machine and go quilt it. So this is what the quilting bar looks like. My sewing machine came with this. If yours didn't, you can probably buy it off of Amazon or some other sewing place, but this is what the quilting bar is like. And then you just put it where it goes on your machine, and you put it wherever you need it to go for however far apart you want your quilt lines to be. Once again, mine are 3 inches apart, so I'm just going to put that where I need it to go. And then you want to back stitch every single one of these just to make sure that your stitches stay together. My sewing machine is set to a stitch length of 3, but you can do whatever you want for the decoration part, which would be the quilt line, so you can go up or down. For more decorative stitching, you want to go longer, but you can use like 3 or 4, or however. Mine only goes to 3 and 4 for the highest. You can do whatever you want. Before we go any further after that, I will say this is not a necessary step to your oven mitt, but if you want to be able to hang up your oven mitt, you need to go make a little loopy-loop piece of fabric that you can turn into a loop and then put on your oven mitt. You're going to take 100% cotton fabric and you're going to make it however big you want. Honestly, this is just the size that I made mine. Mine is pretty skinny, but I will tell you the size of it. So you just line up your fabric to the edge of the numbers on your cutting mat, and I make mine 1.5 inches wide, and then the length is however long you want to make your loop. So for this one specifically, this one is 4, so it's 1.5 by 4, but you can make it however long you want and however wide you want. It just depends on what you like, but if you want to make it exactly like this, you want to cut out a 1.5 by 4 inch piece of fabric, and then after that you're going to take your fabric and just fold it into itself to make it look like this. So you can use an iron to help you, or you can just fold it and pin it. So fold it in half. If you're using an iron, this is what you want to do. Fold it in half and then iron right there, and then open it back up, and then there will be a crease right there from where you ironed it, and fold to that line. Iron this side, fold this down, and iron that side, and then it will fold together. And then you're going to do a top stitch on this side, and if you want to make it look even better, you can do another top stitch on this side as well, and then it'll be good to go. If you're not going to use an iron, all you have to do is just fold it like this and then pin it to help make sure it doesn't move on you. But when you iron it, it pretty much stays the way that you folded it. But if you're not going to iron it, just go ahead and pin it and then do a top stitch right here and a top stitch right there. Once again, mine is 1.5 by 4. You can make yours however wide and long as you want. But this is what mine looks like, and if you like the way that that size is, once again, it is 1.5 by 4. After you got your main pieces of fabric quilted, we're ready to cut out the oven mitt shape. And then once again, you can go ahead and make this if you want. It's not necessary to your oven mitt, but if you want to be able to hang it, you can go ahead and make one of these. Let's go ahead and take our oven mitt template, lay it on top of our main fabric pieces, and cut this shape out. I will say, before you start cutting out the pieces of your fabric to the oven mitt shape, you do need to pay attention to what you want and what you're doing. You want to cut out one panel facing this way and the other panel facing this way. So when you put them together, they will actually go together with the right side of the fabric showing. So put your oven mitt on your fabric once again, where your oven mitt is not hanging outside of your fabric. Weigh it down or pin it, and just go ahead and cut around that shape. Now your fabric should be looking like oven mitts now, and you should have two different directions of your fabric, one going to the left and one going to the right. So when we put them together and we flip it right side out, it will look like this. So once again, pay attention to what you want to be on the top of your hand and what you want to be on the bottom. But these are left and right oven mitts. You can use it for either hand. So I guess it doesn't really matter unless you always want to use it on your right hand or always use it on your left hand. But you can use it for both hands because we put the cotton batting and the Insulbright on both pieces of fabric. So you want to have these cut out and ready to go, and you want to go ahead and have your lining fabric oven mitt shape cut out and ready to go as well. So we can go ahead and go pin both of these at the same time so we can do back-to-back sewing. The next step is to sandwich these together so we can pin them together and then take it to the sewing machine. If you did not decide to make one of these, then you can just go ahead and pin it. But if you did make one of these to be able to hang it up, what you want to do is just fold it however you want to make the loop. I'm personally just going to turn the top side downwards while twisting it to this side, so that way the loop can be reversible. So once again, you just take the top and twist it down to the bottom, and that's how I'm going to make my loop. And you want to take your loop and put it on your fabric. It doesn't matter which piece you use because it's going to look the same no matter which piece you use. So take your loop and put it in where you can put it wherever you want, like along your oven mitt, but I'm going to put mine like in this corner, and you want to put it facing towards your oven mitt, so when we turn it right side out it will be turned this way. So take your loop and put it wherever you want. I'm going to put mine a little above the corner, and I'm going to put a little bit of it hanging out just to make sure that it's going to be secure once we take it to the sewing machine. I'm going to take a clip and I'm just going to go ahead and clip that down, and then I'm going to take my other panel and put it on top of this one and sandwich that together, making sure that it lines up well. And I'm going to clip all the way around, as many clips as I need to make sure it doesn't shift while I'm sewing. And this is what it looks like when it's all nice and clipped together. Once again, I do have my hoop in there. If you want to be able to hang it, it's just in there, and you can put yours wherever you want. Just make sure you put it inside of your fabric, not outside, so when we flip it right side out, it can actually do what it's supposed to do. Then you want to take your lining pieces of fabric that are already cut out to your oven mitt shape, and we're going to do essentially the exact same thing, except along right here on this curve, we're going to leave some space open where we're not going to sew, so we can flip it right side out. So go ahead and put some clips or pins around your oven mitt to make sure it doesn't move while we're sewing it. Once you have it nice and clipped and ready to go, if you want to put something right here to indicate do not sew right there, just go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take two clips and put them side by side like this, so I know not to sew right there. So I'm going to sew right here, back stitch when I start, back stitch when I end, hop over to right here, back stitch, sew all the way around to right on this side, and back stitch. Leave the bottom of this open because that's where your hand's going to go. Also leave right here or any space open. I do not recommend leaving a curve open, so that's why I put it right here. But leave that spot open where you're not going to sew, so we can flip it right side out. We're also not going to sew right here on this one, you know, because you want to put your hand in. Because we use so much material to make sure that it's actually like heat resistant, these are not heat proof, they are heat resistant. Because we use so much material, it is kind of thick, so to help yourself be able to sew this well, you can use a walking foot to be able to help you sew over this thick material. I'm personally just going to keep my regular presser foot because my walking foot just isn't a fan of me or something, I don't know. What you can also do is you can change your needle if you need to. It's not like that thick, but if you think it's too thick for your machine, you can change your needle to a needle that goes through thicker layers. If you did not know that, your needle sizes are actually different. So you can look that up so you can have a better understanding of that. I recently just learned this myself. So right now I have a needle in there that goes through thicker fabrics, only because my other needles broke and I don't have any other needles, honestly. But this needle that I have in my machine goes through thicker fabrics, and I did realize while I was making my pot holders that that was way helpful because my needle just kept getting stuck. So if you're going through thicker fabrics, you can use a walking foot, or you can try changing your needle if you don't have a walking foot, if you have a needle that goes through thicker fabrics. So once again, as you're sewing this, you always want to back stitch when you start and when you end. So we're going to sew around this entire thing, back stitch when we start, back stitch when we end. And then for our lining piece, we want to back stitch when we start and then stop, leave a spot open, and then sew again, back stitch when we start, sew all the way around, and back stitch when we end, leaving both of the bottom pieces open so we can actually put our hands in there. If you're not really good at curves, you can put your needle in your fabric and then lift up your presser foot and turn your fabric and then put your presser foot back down, or you can slowly sew and turn it as you're sewing. My seam allowance is just a 3/8 seam allowance. I'm just using the end of my presser foot to sew around my fabric. Once you get to this part of your glove, what you can do is put your needle in your fabric, and you can just lift up your presser foot and then turn it towards the direction that you want to sew. So it's going to be more of a point than a curve right there. I just found that that's a little bit easier, so we can move on to the thumb area of the oven mitt and then just keep going. Now we have it all sewn together for our lining fabric and our main pieces of fabric. The next step is to cut off any excess fabric. If you can tell, like when you sew, for example on this side, if you can see that I just have some stuff hanging over, so I'm just going to cut that off because I don't need it. Do not cut too close to your sewing line, or you might have to take it back to the sewing machine and then sew over that again. Once you remove any bulk that you may have on your oven mitt, what you want to do is, this will help it lay better together once we've turned it right side out. You want to go around the curves of your oven mitt and then right in there between the thumb and where your other fingers go, and you want to cut some little slivers with some fabric scissors, not going all the way to your sewing line, or you might have to re-sew it, just close to it, and just cut some little slivers. So once again, this will help it fold down better once we flip it right side out. So do that around your curves and in this crease. You want to do that really for this, like absolutely, because this is so much material, but you can also do that for your lining fabric as well, because this is also going to need to be folded onto itself. So just cut some slivers close to your sewing line, but not all the way to your sewing line, on your curves and in that crease between where your thumb and your other fingers go. So this will help it fold down. Once you're done with that, you want to take your main fabric oven mitt and you want to flip it right side out. What you can do is put your hand in there and push this while also grabbing it on the inside, and then just pull this fabric around it to flip it right side out. Once you have it right side out, you can take your hand in there and just try to push out your corners and your curves and push out your thumb. You can also take a tool that you might have. I just use a rounded chopstick because you don't want a pointy one, or you may poke through your seams. So take a tool if you have one, and you can also use that to help you poke out your fabric and make sure the curves are all the way poked out. And this is what it should look like once you flip it right side out. And if you put one of these on there, then this is what this should look like. It should be facing out now, so you can be able to hang it if you want to. Next step you want to do is you want to take your lining fabric. You want to put this on top of this part, your main pieces of fabric. So just take your main pieces of fabric and shove it into your lining fabric. To do this a little bit easier, you can just like put your hand in there and then open up your lining fabric and just put your hand in there while pulling the lining fabric down on top of it. put your thumb in there and make sure you pull it where it's actually in there all the way, and then pull down your lining fabric if you need to. Now this is where it matters that you left a spot open so we can flip it right side out. So hopefully you did that. Once it's in there nicely, the bottom part of your fabric should line up. If you have some fabric that's longer than the other, sew to the shorter fabric so you can actually make sure your fabrics are sewn together. So what you want to do is take this to the sewing machine. You can pin it if you want to. I don't think it's necessary, but if you want to, you can pin it. And you want to sew all the way around. Make sure you back stitch when you start and when you end. So some sewing machines come with this compartment right here that you can remove, so you are able to sew around projects like this. But this is actually too small to fit around this spot. If you're just skinnier, you can try to put it on there and then sew around it, but this is not small enough to fit through this and where I can still keep turning it. But some sewing machines do have that ability. So if yours does and this is small enough, you can just go ahead and put your glove in there to sew around it, and that should be easier. But if you can't do that, what you can do is open up your glove and move the fabric out of the way and put that under the machine, and just turn this and sew as you go. Backstitch when you start and when you end, and my seam allowance is still 3/8, and I'm just lining up my fabric to my presser foot. So this is what it looks like when you have it all sewn together at the bottom. So as best as you can, pull your main fabric out of that hole. Hopefully you left a big enough hole to get it out. If you didn't, now you know for next time. And just pull that through. Once you have this pulled out of the hole, you want to take your lining fabric and turn it into itself so you can have the right side showing now. And before we sew it, you want to make sure that you poke out all of your curves. So you can use your pokey tool again if you have one. Make sure you poke out your thumb and you just rub against the curve areas to make sure that the curves are nice and poked out. So now we have this hole right here, and what you want to do is push in any threads that might be hanging out, and you want to pull it taut where the fabric is on top of itself and it's lined up well, and you can pin that if you need to. Take it to the sewing machine and do a top stitch right there to sew that closed, and then we're almost done. Once you have that hole closed, what you want to do is take your lining fabric and just push it into your main fabric. Make sure you put your thumb where your thumb goes so it's nice and lined up. That might take a little bit of wiggle room and pushing and pulling and whatever, but just push it in there to line it up nicely. And then you have an oven mitt. And you can stop right there, but if you want, you can also take this back to the sewing machine, line these up by rolling down your fabric, making sure that these are right on top of each other, and you can do a top stitch around right there if you want. I personally just leave it as is. But if you want to make it look a little neater, just push in your lining fabric the best that you can, roll it down to make it look nice so they're laying on top of each other well, take it to the sewing machine and do a top stitch. But other than that, guys, we're done and we made an oven mitt. So that is how you make an oven mitt. I hope this tutorial was helpful to you all. If you want to make sure that it's actually working, if you're going to gift this to anybody, you can go test it to make sure that it is actually heat resistant if you would like to. But it should be if you followed my instructions of using the cotton batting and the Insulbright. And this can be used on your left hand and your right hand if you were able to put cotton batting and Insulbright on both panels of your fabric. Make sure you cut off any loose strands that you may have, and then it is ready to be used and ready to be gifted. If you all would like me to teach you all anything else to make for this Christmas season, make sure you drop it down in the comments, and I will see you all next time. Thank you so much for coming along for this tutorial. I hope it was so helpful to you, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!